Hello, everybody, and welcome to 3D6 Charge, a podcast about competitive Warhammer 40k, the state of the game, and community news. I'm your host, Chris Vo, and joining me tonight is Kevin Lieb.
Howdy, howdy.
And Benjamin Rubenstein.
Hey, everyone.
Right, so what's going on, guys? Not a busy weekend. There was only like one GT, and nothing interesting really happened at the top four.
I have played a game of Horus Heresy.
You live the dream. You live the 7th edition dream. How was it?
My Space Marines were meager imitations of what the Custodes could potentially be. I had some rules wrong. Some in my favor, some in my opponent's favor. It was both of our first game. But at one point, we thought that when my Terminators charged into his Custodian Guard, due to his shields, they were hitting on 6s. Turns out it's 5s. But either way, my army just literally just got walked into and died. It was an interesting game.
What army were you playing?
Iron Hands.
I did not participate in this game, but I've been hearing about it all week. It sounds pretty glorious.
So how did you mess up the hitting on 6s and 5s thing? Was you looked up like the weapon skill versus weapon skill chart wrong?
Yeah, I thought it was if you were tied on weapon skill, you hit on 4s, and if you were lower weapon skill, you hit on 5s. But it's actually, you have to be half your opponent's weapon skill to hit on 5s. The more you know. And then Custodes just have a shield that's -1 to hit, +1 invuln in melee. Oh, sorry, +1 invuln all the time, -1 to hit just in melee, which is real good.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I would love to get into Horus Heresy and just have an excuse to own a scatter die again and eye plates.
It has been a weird weekend for me because I didn't do very much with 40k. I built some models, but I didn't play a game. It's been like a week and a half since I played a game. I don't know, man. It feels weird.
Dude, I go
That's illegal.
Months at a time without playing a game.
Yeah, well, I don't. I did, however, spend a fair amount of time cowering under a table thinking about what the new Octarius book is going to have in it. Segue. Shall we talk about that?
What is the new Octarius book going to have in it?
Well,
the new Octarius. Oh, this is really rough.
It has Gosgul Thraka on the front, so it must be melee orcs, right?
Yeah, no, it is Blood Axes, which actually is like a perfectly appropriate thing to have a Codex supplement for, and Speedwa, which is not an appropriate thing to have more rules for. GW. So let's start with the good news. They're doing a clan, new clan rules for Blood Axes. That's neat. Blood Axes are a clan that early on people were experimenting with. They have a very neat warlord trait where you can put things into outflank. And then their chapter tactic is they can fall back and shoot and just that's interesting. None of it is nearly as good as some of the Dom clans, specifically Freebooters is ridiculous. But then even without Freebooters, the Evil Sons, Bad Moons, and Death Skulls are all doing very powerful things. So I think Blood Axe is getting a Codex supplement is totally fine. What's not fine is we're getting an Army of Renown for Speedwa.
What are the restrictions on the Army of Renown?
Well, we don't know. We don't know. But I'm going to say the exact same thing that I said about the Sisters one, or sorry, the Admech one, which is that it doesn't matter because Speedwa is the most powerful mechanic in that book, and by adding another layer of potential rules to it, you make it even harder to bring back into line with nerfs because if you nerf it, they have one more thing to fall back on to just still build a really busted broken.
Right, it's almost like it's almost like multiplicative instead of just additive.
It's literally the Skachari veteran cohort where we're like the Skachari veteran cohort was now people were playing AdMech. We got like the minor nerfs to like the 2 AdMech strats, and people were immediately like, well, the Skachari veteran cohort's like 5% better, so now we're all gonna go do that. And the Speedwall is gonna be the same thing. Like it's just another, or it could be a complete disaster. It could just be like straight up better than what Speedwall already is, and just have no downsides. Like you can only play vehicles in your list. Like we've been watching people win GTs with lists that are only vehicles.
What?
Yeah, the lists that like run 5 to 10 infantry dudes to like screen stuff out and score objectives are like probably a little bit better. But if you get like 4 free stratagems, a sweet warlord trait, and 2 good relics for just like dropping your 10 commandos, then like, yeah, it's a problem.
Watch the restriction be like, you must take 3 Daka jets and a Wazbomb Blast jet.
Yeah, like I'm just like so down with GW's rules design with the new codexes, because I knew we were getting this is like a cold shot. I have to go find the clip of myself saying we're going to get a Speedwall supplement in like a couple months, and it's going to be a disaster because we're a couple months later we're getting a Speedwall supplement, and unless GW just like actually prints like a bunch of do nothing rules, which they haven't really been doing in these supplements, it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah. And with how they've been handling, or really not handling, FAQs, I'm finding it really hard to not just get a bunch of orc flyers for myself now. Because like it's one of those things where like I've always said like, hey, don't meta chase, because by the time you get your shit painted, that an FAQ is going to come out, chapter approved is going to come out, and it's not going to be good anymore. And because it wasn't your army that you're passionate about, then you're going to end up hating it and never playing it or selling it. I'm starting to feel more confident that if I just got the Daka jets, like I could reasonably put them into play for like an appreciable amount of time before they fell out of favor again.
Yeah, especially with this now, because it's just one more thing that like it's one more layer of rules to fall back up on when like the first couple layers start getting like actually toned down to a reasonable level.
Oh, speed freaks used to be a keyword, right? Did airplanes have speed freaks?
Is. No.
Right.
I don't think airplanes are speed freaks, but they might be. I don't remember.
They're not speed freaks. They only get plan.
Yeah, speed freaks are just the buggies and the bikes, if I remember correctly. So yeah, there's
yes,
a world
you're right. It's the buggies, the bikes.
Only. You can't bring planes.
No planes. It's only fast attacks, and then the 2 war trike and the war bike.
If I were to take a blind shot guess on what it is, it's you can take an outrider detachments without it costing command points. And if your warlord's in it, and your war bikes get OPSEC as like the free abilities, but you can only take speed freak models in HQs.
Yeah, but that is, I mean, hopefully, right? Because that means they can't take the planes, but this goes to the problem if they're like, all right, the way we fix the orc list is we nerf planes, then people are just going to start looking at the attachment going, this is how we win games now. Like, it almost doesn't matter what they print. It's just, it's a problem.
Right, because like what's the other half of the orc freebooters problem is you can't hide from them anywhere, because one is the jets are just, they're tall and they fly, so you can't hide from them. And then the other part of that problem is the squig buggies, which are speed freaks. You could take up to 9.
Like squig buggies and scrapjets are wildly undercosted, and then booster blasters aren't like appreciably far behind. And then shock drum jaxes are also just like good. Like they're teleporting las cannons. There's only so bad that can ever be. So I don't know. I feel like I've been doom and gloom at the beginning of every podcast, but like it's just this is the thing I least wanted. I really didn't want a Speed Freaks or Codex, and now we're getting our supplement rather, and now we're getting a Speed Freak supplement. And
Popsicle was a mistake.
What's up?
This popsicle was a mistake.
Yes, it was.
The studio lights are starting to melt it, and it just dripped on my pants.
I said before we went live, a popsicle was a mistake, but here we are.
It was already out of the wrapper, man.
All right. Popsicle comments aside, I think you're very valid in being very doom and gloom. It feels like we're living in the worst timeline where GW is releasing very imbalanced rules, but then also not fixing them. It's like it's worse than Space Marines were, where there was something that was like totally out of whack, but also they refused to nerf it. Like you think of Iron Hands. Iron Hands got 3 sets of nerfs until they were put back in line with, admittingly, only Space Marines, but like it was acknowledged that at least something needed to be balanced.
Do you know what this reminds me of, actually? This reminds me of exactly that. We got Space Marine 2.0, and we're like, oh my goodness, this is a problem. And then a month later, we got, or maybe 2 months later, we got a Psychic Awakening with like, also, Chapter Command. Here's a bunch of really busted abilities for Space Marines. And it reminds me of like exactly that. Like this is like the exact 1-2 punch we got. Except that we've gotten it over and over because we got Drakari into Cult of Strife and we got Admech into Veteran Corps and we're getting Orcs into Speedwa. It's just like, okay, like what's the next one? What's our next broken codex that gets like, what's the Grey Knights? I'm like ready for like Codex Supplement Dread Knights, right? Like,
yeah.
Let's talk about something happier, or do you think? Sorry.
Yeah, let's move on.
So is this why you started playing Horus Heresy, Kevin?
I mean, partially.
Partially, yeah. Monster Apocalypse is getting a Kickstarter. I'm very excited for that. I picked up a bunch of Legion stuff. I can't say I wasn't picking up 40k stuff. I actually still have also been picking up 40k stuff. But Necrons. You can't tell me I'm picking up Necrons to be competitive. I just like their look. But anyway, moving on. We have gotten we have a new box set that's coming out. It's going to be Gene Store Cults versus Custodes. Interesting. It's a very interesting box set because it's actually like 4 characters versus 10 models. It's a weird.
So weird. So
9 models, yeah.
GW likes to pretend that people open up their box sets and then play the contents against each other. Nobody actually does this, but if you, our listeners, are one of the people that actually does this, don't do that with this box set. Your games are going to be absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's really, really weird.
It's a very strange box set, but because people don't actually open the boxes and then play them against each other, like it doesn't actually matter. Weird.
I guess if you consider Terminator's characters, it is kind of like 4 characters versus 4 characters.
Kevin,
guess
every Custodian is a character. Come on, they're all. It's an army of heroes.
In Horus Heresy, 100 fucking.
Oh man,
it's so bad. I'm scarred. I've never.
So we also got some spoilers about 2 new characters for Gene Store Cults and for Custodes. The Custodes character is pretty straightforward. There's nothing like wildly complicated about him, but he's sweet. He's got 3 different ways of swinging. They're all very good at murdering stuff. And he heroically intervenes like 6 inches and fights first if he is next to something. And he's leadership 11. They also threw that in the article. Leadership 11's that's very high, but he's a character, so I don't know how often that like actually matters. So yeah, the Custodians get like a sweet beast character, which is kind of interesting because like yeah, they're this like really neat infantry army, but their characters actually aren't that smashy, which is like kind of feels weird to say, but like I don't know, Kevin, you're a Custodes player, right? Your characters like don't hit that hard.
No, they play like captains with Thunderhammers. Oh, sorry, not Thunderhammers. Power Fists. Yeah, they don't hit like weaklings, but you're not really counting on them to kill anything significant.
And this guy will kill something significant. He's got 6 attacks at various profiles that can be like 5 neg-4-3 ruling everything against characters, or I think it's like 6 neg-4-2 but auto wounding and 4-ups against vehicles and monsters, or like 12 attacks.
You need to upload strengths by 1 apiece because those are strength 5.
Oh, you're so right. Or like 12 attacks that was an AP 3. Like he kind of just wherever you put him into, he just picks it up, which is sweet.
The 2 attacks for every 1 attack mode is like by far the weakest. It's only AP 1.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Though I wouldn't be
I overhyped him.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's like a misprint on the community article. They've
I don't know, man.
been known for having some APs often.
Black
It's like-
Templars, 2 damage flamers.
Yeah. Woo. He's also interesting because he really throws off swinging into him because he makes 1s through 3s always fail when attacking him to hit.
Transhuman on hits.
Yes.
That's kind of new.
Man, what if we think that's like his special rule? I mean, it is his special rule, but what if that was actually just the army's rule?
No. No. Be a very weird special rule because you're like, all right, our army's great against elites and bad against orcs. It's not the special rule I'd want to have in this meta.
What are you talking about? Orcs hit on 3s. How many times? How many times that dang mech boy shot into me?
All right.
Oh, but speaking of mech boys, who are mech boys in theory are kind of like a mistake. Everyone kind of remembers the soup up shock attack gun where it's just like this thing can kill you and you really can't shoot at it because character protection. So this kind of is exactly what the new Gene Circle character does. So
in his defense, it's less egregious than the shock attack gun, but he is his mini version of it for sure.
Yeah. So it's 24 inches, assault 2d3, strength 8, -3, 1 damage, blast. And when it's shooting against vehicles or monsters, it's flat damage 3. Quite the hike.
Yeah, he wants to be hitting monsters and vehicles with this thing. My favorite part about this gun is the flavor. It's not a gun. He is a saboteur. There's mines all over the battlefield. He's got a big TNT plunger. He's setting them off as you step on them.
A big like Acme Corp TNT plunger from Wile E. Coyote.
So his shooting attack is surprise. There was dynamite there. You're like, all right, I'm going to say here. Surprise, there was more dynamite there. The article did not have a once per game limit on his attack, which is weird because I really thought there would be, given like the flavor of what's happening. But like apparently he's just he put in some legwork before this fight. There are bombs everywhere. There are 5 turns worth of them in fact.
Literally a plan generations in the making.
Yeah, right. Oh man. So that's kind of wild. He also has some other rules that are really interesting. He has a mine that he can put on the ground, which is good. Like it does some mortal wounds. It does lots of mortal wounds to vehicles and monsters. But Kevin, what's the really wild one?
While he's on a terrain feature, he has old character protection. You can't shoot at him unless you're within 12 inches. Actually, I guess that's better than old character protection. Yeah, it's about the same.
Depends on
and you're -1 to hit him.
Yeah, that's gonna be very interesting depending on how airplanes get handled in the meta. Because right now with airplanes in the meta, like whatever, airplanes can always just foot of him and nothing matters. Some point, I hope airplanes are going to go away, and at which point, and then also of course it's going to depend on how GSE what their deployment shenanigans look like. But there could be some very interesting worlds in which like you just like have 2 of him on the table as your deployment because GSE can do really silly null deployment things in 8th edition, and I suspect their 9th edition codex is going to allow them to also do that. And you just like look at your opponent, and you're like, all right, move your models. No one's fast enough to get within 12 inches. Cool, you can't shoot. My turn. There's some stuff going on there. What do you think about that rule, Kevin?
I don't think super character protection should have been put on the model with the las cannons. I actually don't think characters should have las cannon equivalents, but if you're also going to give old school character protection back, don't also put it on the model with las cannons. It seems questionable, though. You if you want to release a character in this day and age that's like actually defensible and can work, it's kind of what you have to do. She also has the rule that she's +1. She gets 2 bonuses per armor for cover. You would naturally think that this would be like pretty powerful, but if she's like given what she's wearing, that probably only puts her to a 3-up, which probably means she just dies instantly.
Yeah, this looks like a model that probably just gets picked up the second sling and allowed to shoot at it, which is kind of par for the course for GSC.
Yeah. If GSC keep the rule where you can only bring one character per detachment and they still need all the CP, this model's probably fine even with these kind of mistakes, because at worst case it's just one and like she probably hits on 4s, so it's like
And if she's an HQ, then like she's fighting for slots now, and I agree.
Man, can you imagine if they release a box and it's like 4 HQs? Here you go.
I don't know, man. GSC's wild. Like, it's already not legal detachment. It's like it's 3 HQs, an elite, and a troop choice. Like, if she's elite.
Are you
I think she's an elite. I don't think that she'd be an HQ.
I agree. Yeah, I suspect she's an elite, but like, man, I don't know. They have a lot of things in that book that like feel like an elite and like, nah, HQ slot.
So, speaking of slots and needing them to get into a battalion, what do you think if they make Brood Coven a like thing you can do like the Death Guard Tri Plague elite slot, where you can put a
Ooh.
Patriarch, Primus, and a Magus in the same HQ slot?
I think that that's a thing we'll probably get now that you say it out loud. Because with the one of the GSC's like biggest issues in the current edition is they're so crunched on HQ slots in their one detachment. They can't bring a second detachment because they need all their command points. So Kevin has acquired Necrons. He's acquired Necrons by trading his Gene Stealer cults. So I'm very excited about new Gene Stealer cult things. The army's always been a lot of fun. I had an absolute blast last time I got to borrow it from Kevin and play it. And their sneaky shenanigans are right up my alley. You get to get so much nonsense with them. So I will definitely be covering more Gene Stealer cult leaks as they come out.
All right, are you guys ready to move on to the main topic?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So, main topic of tonight is Space Marines, in particular, a successor chapter of the Imperial Fist. And oh boy,
yeah, Carcadons are sweet.
Oh boy, do the Imperial Fist need to learn what's up. They got nothing on their successors. So first things first, what is in this supplement?
Well, first things first. I'm being sarcastic. Carcadons are a Raven Guard successor, as I'm sure all of you know. We're talking about Black Templars.
We are talking about Black Templars. What is in this Black Templars supplement? We got the Primarisifying of pretty much all of their main characters. Actually, all of their main characters, I believe. Their main unique troop choice Primarisified. Their main unique elite choice Primarisified, and a bunch of weapon options that other Primaris units don't have. It was quite the release. Something like, who would have thought that like the first faction to get like the largest section of first chapter to get the largest amount of unique models would be Black Templars.
Yeah, they have like Primaris combi weapons now, right?
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah, and it's basically just a slapdash of a auto bolt rifle and then flamer, and then they call it an auto flamer.
Right. The one that jumps out to me is like the good one is the auto plasma, because they're both assault guns. So is the auto plasma the assault one, or is there rapid fire plasma still?
It's rapid fire plasma still. It's the auto flamer. That's the
auto flamer is the double assault. Okay.
Yes.
Never mind. They're all weird. I'm putting them back on. They're all weird because it's an assault 3 gun slapped to either an assault 1 gun that wants you to get very close, or a rapid fire gun that wants you to get close, or a assault gun that wants. They're probably just good though. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of firepower in all those things.
The auto flamer has a pretty sweet relic. It's the flamer part becomes D3 plus 3 shots, strength 5 minus 1/2 damage. Yeah.
Oh no.
Pick up an intercessor squad. Be gone.
That's hitting it. This goes on like a character?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right. Yeah, I'm into it. This is really good. Does anything happen to the bolter part, or is just the 2 damage heavy flamer was enough?
Nothing happens to the bolter part. It also can still be a combi flamer that gets this upgrade, by the way. So they didn't just give it to Primaris.
Okay, cool.
So probably the most important part about the Black Templars Codex supplement is the fact that they don't have a traditional super doctrine. This is like a few weeks into the book being released, so we're not gonna get too in the weeds. There's kind of like one great one that you can kind of build a list around. It's your entire memory gets a 5-up invuln, can't be wounded or 1s and 2s, and this costs you not getting cover and compared to regular Space Marines, a traditional super doctrine. We would all agree that this is probably the most powerful one, or the one that you can build the most unique list around.
I feel like this is the one that you have to build a list around if you want to take it. The problem is that I think all of the good Black Templar lists I've seen before this book have a bunch of dudes with storm shields, so I'm not sure like how excited you are about the invulnerable save, which then also means you care. The only thing that you're getting is like the mini transhuman, but then your guys are all toughness 4, so like how many strength 8 guns are there in the world? But there's definitely, this one definitely opens up like entire new archetypes where you're just like building new lists that you would never have thought about before for Black Templars, and I'm pretty into that.
If not that one, what would you say is the best of the Templar vows for a traditional Black Templars list, Ben?
I don't know the other vows like off the top of my head that well. I remember reading them through. I think if you're taking like a traditional Black Templars list, like that one is certainly one that you think about. Like if you like roll up to the table and your opponent's like, hello, I'm playing orcs. I have 55 crack missiles on my list. You're like, all right, no wounding on 1s and 2s it is. Because I feel like the traditional lists are going to pick their vow based more on what they're playing against, but I could be wrong. The vow system seems complicated, and I have not played enough of with or against Black Templars to really know what's going on there.
I mean, on its basic level, it's kind of like if you ever played Chaos Knights and picking your vow there pre-game, you're just picking whatever ones, you're gonna have your default one that you're comfortable with, and then you're gonna have a couple of scenarios where you can flex into a specific vow because you need that tool or because the matchup is good.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I want to go back to the 5 of invulnerable save one. Because you can't get cover, I'm actually really not excited about it in a lot of like more traditional Black Templars lists because again, back to those storm shields, like storm shields and cover are gross. Like 1-ups, like dudes in normal power armor with storm shields and cover with 1-up armor, that's like really durable. Terminator armor with storm shields, now you're 0 up in cover, really good. They oftentimes run a bunch of jump pack guys. Jump pack guys are perfectly happy to sit in a forest with 2-up armor, -1 to be hit. That's kind of a miserable unit to have to shoot at. And they come flying out of the forest with like no penalty whatsoever because jump packs. And you lose a lot of that stuff by taking that vow. Like you can't get dense cover, you can't get the stacking storm shield cover bonus. But again, like it depends what you're playing against. Like I don't know, one plays Tau right now, but if you're going to play against Tau, like all of their guns don't care about cover. So you're like, all right, cool. Like you don't care about cover, I don't care about cover. Right? You play against that Eldar list that's going around where like literally every dude, just their tractor tactic is they don't care about cover. You're like, all right, cool. I can't get cover anyway. Also, here's some bonuses. So I think that one is like the traditional Templar list doesn't take it very often. But I could be wrong. Again, I'm not a Templars player.
That's fair. I would kind of say there's also a third air quotes traditional Black Templars list where you try to do the Crusade squads and vehicles for the Crusaders, where you're not focusing so much on Terminators and instead big squads. The 5-up invuln on big squads, you're probably not getting them all into cover anyway.
Oh yeah,
and your vehicles want invulns.
Oh yeah, if you're taking like 20-man Crusader squads, like 20 years or the new Crusader squads, which are all Primaris and have 2 wounds, like yeah, absolutely. I'm super into like, here's 20 primary streams with invulnerable saves. Like, let's go. Also, I didn't pay for those invulnerable saves. Like, they were just free, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Compared to regular Space Marines, you're giving up a semi-weak chapter tactic and no traditional super doctrine power spike. You're more consistent across all the turns of the game.
Do you want to talk about the other vows? They're called vows, right? I'm not getting that wrong.
They are called vows.
Okay.
So the first one, suffer not the unclean to live. When you make an attack with a melee weapon against a non-vehicle unit, an unmodified wound rule of 6 automatically wounds the target.
It's your old super doctrine, isn't it?
It's the old super doctrine. A little bit improved though. It now works against Titanics that aren't vehicles.
Okay.
Um.
Also, the old one was only on the charge, right? And this one's all the time. Not that combats ever last more than one turn when Black Templars are involved.
Oh, you're right. I completely forgot what the old Black Templars are. The full part of the Black Templar super doctrine. They were really a devout push army. Anytime I thought about them. Next, the downside for this is when you declare a charge, you have to declare the closest enemy, non-aircraft, as part of the charge target.
I don't think that's a big deal.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't find myself charging past people very often.
If I did want to charge two things, it would if I did want to charge two things, I was normally going to be declaring the nearest anyway too. So yeah, either I'm charging the nearest or I'm charging if I'm multi-charging, which could happen because once again, 20-man Crusader squads, you're probably needing to charge two things to get full value.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right. Next up, this one is super limited. It's aboard the witch, destroy the witch. If your opponent has a psyker in the army, on the first turn of the game, you get plus 3 inches of movement. And you reroll wound rolls of 1 against psyker units. The downside is you can't do actions within 18 inches of a psyker, which is technically a downside, but like it's only a downside if you make it a downside.
Yeah, just don't take action secondaries. Yeah, because if you're taking this, you're taking Abhor the Witch, and then you're Black Templar, so you're probably taking Engage in all fronts, and then you're probably taking a hold or something else like that. Like, yeah.
Yeah. While we're on this one, I'd like to bring up that Templars have a litany that gives a second vow to a unit for a turn.
Okay.
I really like the utility of that vow. And if your opponent has psychers, just getting plus 3 inches of movement if you have like something melee focus is really good.
Yeah. Amusingly, you're kind of screwed by Thousand Suns on this one because everyone's cutting psychers from the list so they don't get Wrath of Magnus.
Yeah.
But real ones to hit and wound against like the entire Grey Knights army is really good.
Mm-hmm. Last but not least, while you're in melee, you're always considered having the Assault Doctrine active, and you always get +1 attack as though you had charged. This obviously not stacking with Shock Assault. Downside, you can't fall back. Which is a pretty
weird. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Which is maybe the biggest downside I've seen.
I think it's definitely the biggest downside. Not being able to fall back.
That's a huge downside. That's locking you out of movement.
Like your opponent knows they can just like lock you into stuff. Like, man, all of a sudden, like my rhinos can just like walk over to your tactical squads and be like, well, this is happening for the rest of the game. Like, you can't walk away from me. You'll have to either walk another melee unit over here and like come punch me, or like this.
And you got to make sure that it kills the rhino, otherwise they're locked in combat too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a real disaster, right? You walk something over there and it misses. You're like, well,
yeah,
this rhino's infinite value now.
So overall, I think you're right. I think of the other three besides the Invuln one, you kind of like pick it depending on the matchup.
Yeah. Yeah, if you put the army, if you're like, all right, my army is like a bunch of Vanguard vets with, storm shields and melee weapons and blade guard vets and maybe like the Crusader squad stuff and characters. Like, all right, like, yeah, I'm just gonna beginning of the game, I'm gonna look at my opponent's army and pick one of those three, and it's I'm not locked into it.
All right. So moving on to stratagems. So probably the most important part of the stratagem section is that they got a pretty big nerf to devout push. It no longer lets you just engage into combat that you weren't already in. But it got a big upside. So wording: if pick a core or Black Templars character, if that unit is not within engagement of an enemy unit, make a normal move of up to 3 inches with that unit. You must end this normal move either closer to the nearest enemy unit or closer to the nearest objective marker. Now, there's kind of two things there. One, it's a normal move, so you can do I get into a transport after moving, because it's a normal move. Normal moves let you get into transports. Two, the way this is worded, you get to pick what thing you are moving closer to. And this kind of gives Black Templars a mini firing fade.
It is only 3 inches, but in this edition, that is far enough to put your toe on a piece of obscuring terrain and then take your toe off of that obscuring terrain.
Yeah, I'm into that.
Or like Kevin said, you can just get into a transport. Also, super, super important. So yes, it's a nerf because you cannot walk into combat, but I would not say it's strictly worse because they've opened up a bunch of things here. First of all, the ability to devout push backwards, stratagem naming issues here. You can literally jump with this. Also, the old devout push was infantry, and this one is core. So you can have like a Redemptor Dreadnought or a Volkite Dreadnought shoot through a building and then step off of it towards an objective that's behind itself. That's very significant.
I love it.
And this happens in the fight phase, correct?
Yeah, start of the fight phase.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is right on your turn, you're jumping. It's either fight phase, correct?
Either fight phase.
Yeah, so your turn, you're jumping. On their turn, you're shortening your charge distances by 3 inches. Because after they've charged in, well, you're going to get to go now before any other of your units can get damaged. So you have dudes in the building. Well, now they can move 3 inches out of that building. Turn their 8-inch charge, which is like a little questionable, to a 5-inch charge, which is like 100% going to make it. Well, not, but very likely. Yeah, that strat's still really, really good. And the extra utility is interesting, but yeah, you use the no more pushing guys directly into combat with it is a little sad.
It combos incredibly well with one of their future stratagems. I'm trying to look up the name. Oh yes, Strength of Conviction. 1 CP. Use a stratagem in your command phase. Select one Black Templar's core unit from the army. Until the start of your next command phase, that unit has objective secured.
Oh, gross.
So, from a strategy perspective, let's say there's like some objective in the middle, right? And you're trying to like keep something away from it. Traditionally, if you kind of put like a 4-inch bubble of guys, they hit in. Unless they kill everything, you can kind of keep that unit back. So even if they had OBSEC, they're not going to be able to get on there. If 2 rounds of combat later, and if you can kill that unit, you can then. No, I guess you could. Not 2 rounds of combat. So you fall back. Normally, that would mean that your unit's now 4 inches away from the objective you want. Probably your opponent probably puts some OBSEC on that point, or some units on that point that they fell back with. You can now devout push in, give OBSEC, and like gain that point.
That was all very complicated. I how is the devout push playing into this? Because couldn't I just stay on the objective?
If they're screening out the objectives in a way that you like can't get there, you can devout push, get closer, and then give your guys objectives secure that your opponent's not expecting.
Well, can't you not devout push into melee though?
Yeah, but you can devout push. It's a normal move of 3 inches. Like you can like kind of arc around. Like the amount more your opponent has to screen is like vastly increased. Is the point I'm trying to make.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Also, going back to that strat, that's just core.
Yes,
So I could give my Dreadnought OBSEC.
absolutely.
Awesome.
Man, all right. The more we talk about this, the more excited I am about Black Templar Dreadnoughts.
Other interesting stratagems. They have a 2 CP, pick a chaplain. That chaplain auto prays a spell and can pray an additional prayer. They have a really powerful Master of Sanctity, but they're also a melee faction, so rerolling hits is like worthwhile. The way this is worded, you could have like Gribaldus like triple inspiring, because the auto gets one and gets an additional one. An additional one is like 2 to 3.
So 1 CP strat.
2 CP.
Oh, okay. It's still really good.
It's still really good.
I was like, 1. I mean, that's egregious at 1. 2. It's still good. We're still using it.
And the powerful thing is, it gives you some value. Like you get that additional prayer, so like you're not just like spending 2 CP to auto cast a prayer, which would be what Grimaldus is stuck on, because even though he's a Master of Sanctity, he does have the Master of Sanctity Warlord trait, so that the original Space Marine stratagem is still 2 CP for him.
Interesting.
This gives him that at the 2 CP cost, but then gives him something on top of it. And Black Templars have some very powerful litanies that you want to make sure go off. Most importantly, give a unit a 5-up Feel No Pain.
Could this be a Dreadnought?
This could be a Dreadnought, yes.
All right. I'm going to ask that question every time you say anything about this book for the rest of the podcast. Carry on.
Also interesting, so Black Templars can make the Super Sergeant. So they have the traditional give a Sergeant a relic. They also have an additional give a Sergeant +1 wounds, +1 attack, +1 attack characteristic. And then in addition, they also have a second relic you can put on the same Sergeant. So you can make some crazy combos. This is not the way I'm planning on playing Black Templars, but a great example would be a Vanguard vet with Artificer armor, a Storm Shield, and a relic that says you ignore AP 1 and 2. So like, actually, I guess that the relic's not doing.
The relic doesn't do that much. But all right, so I'm 1-up armor with a 4-up invulnerable save, and how many wounds? 3?
3 wounds.
3 wounds?
Which can be apothecary back for all the relics.
Oh. And then that's the guy that the apothecary brings back every turn.
Yep.
Man, that's a obnoxious thing to shift.
Oh, the Crux Obsidian, -1 damage taken. To a minimum 1.
Could this be like a Vanguard vet instead? Or sorry, a Blade Guard vet?
It could be a Blade Guard vet.
With what, now 4 wounds?
Now 4 wounds.
So
and -1
wounds,
damage.
2-up armor, -1 damage.
No, 1-up armor.
Well, the Blade Guard vets. Oh man, no, you're right. They have Artificer armor. Ay. Okay. And then it has a Feel No Pain, right? Because the Artificer armor?
Artificer armor technically gives you an invulnerable,
okay.
which isn't getting you a lot here, but
okay. So you're 1-up armor, 4-up invuln, 4 wounds, -1 damage taken, potentially 5-up Feel No Pain from the litany.
Yeah.
Yep.
Transhuman if you need it. You come back to life every turn. Great.
So you're saying stock up on Blade Guard vets and paint them black.
Yeah, so that unit can hold any objective forever. Forever. Alrighty.
If you wanted to not give them the 1-up armor, which might not be necessary, a 4-up invuln's pretty good. You could give them the Sword of Judgment, which is a +3 -3 damage power sword.
Seven neg 3/3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not the crucial 8, but still very.
Yeah, we missed 8, but yeah. Man, that's we're doing a thing here.
So I actually played Blade Guard Veterans over the weekend into Orc Buggies. I'm not going to say Blade Guard Veterans aren't choppy, because they still are choppy. They're not like early edition where you can actually kind of just put them into anything. They actually, I feel like, needed a little bit of a damage buff in a non-melee faction. So the Sword of Judgment might actually be where I end up.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. Because you're not strength 8, so you're just like plinking away at buggies through Ramshackle.
Yeah.
Which is a reasonable rule. Yeah, all this sounds sweet. Now you said this is not the way you were planning on playing Templars. Do you want to talk a little bit how you were planning on playing Templars?
Yes, vehicles all the time.
So you did the same thing I did, where you saw a faction that could get a 5 vulnerable save, and you started looking at all the terrible vehicles and going, this could be good now.
It was also a combination of like thinking about what's good in the meta.
Sure.
AdMech people started going to Redemptor Dreadnoughts to counter AdMech. So we know vehicles are good against AdMech.
That's fair. You actually have like vehicles that are baseline good.
Yeah. You have Drukhari is a little. Redemptors were okay against Drukhari. And into Orc buggies, yes, the crack missiles are an issue. For vehicles, but the squig buggies kind of get bad if they're all dreadnoughts, so they're all -1 damage.
Yeah. Even then, going from 3 to 2 damage on the crack missiles, like that's not nothing.
Absolutely. So the list I'm planning on bringing, or I was thinking about, was a Chaplain Grimaldus. We'll get to him in a second. He's very good though. A Chaplain on bike. With the prayer of +2 to charge rolls and +3 inches to pile in. And the warlord trait of when he's with the warlord trait of Rights of War.
Okay.
A Master of the Forge with the warlord trait of +1 attack to dreadnoughts and +1 strength to dreadnoughts.
It's happening.
3 Plasma Redemptors with underslung Gatling guns and storm bolters. 3 Ironclad Dreadnoughts with dual melee weapon, Melta gun. And 2 Gladiator Reapers. Now,
sorry, go ahead.
The Gladiator Reapers, I think, get good when your entire army is vehicles and your opponent starts having to like think about where they're putting their anti-tank. And having an invuln and being T8. One of the things that's nice about this list is Redemptors they're only T7, but they're 13 wounds, which is kind of like awkward for the crack missile example.
-1 damage taken.
Yep. Ironclads are T8, so they're wounding on 4s. So while they have less wounds, they're reduced. They're essentially -1 to wound over the Redemptor Dreadnoughts.
So they have to get 4 wounds through to kill them with we keep calling them crack missiles. They're missile they're rockets, which are 8 -2/3 or 8 -3/3 because it works. So they have to get 4 through, which means they need to hit you with 8 of them, which means they have to shoot 16 at you.
It's worse than that because you have invulns.
You've invuln. All right, I'm into it.
The 2 Gladiator Reapers, being that they are technically somehow the weakest target of the list, I put auto launchers on them, which lets them have smoke screen for -1 to hit. Oh, and I kind of forgot about them because they're just there to fill out the battalion. 3 Crusader squads with chainswords for 90 points apiece.
Gotcha. Those guys kind of need to hide against the Orc buggy list because you don't want them to get picked off by squig buggies to start the chain going.
Yeah, the list has ways of spending CP, but doesn't really need all of it. There's like a strong argument that like the list like just puts some of them in all of them in reserve and like hides them for 2 turns while the rest of the army kills the Orc buggies.
That's fair. Do you have enough DACA there to like really start putting some damage into them? Because the Ironclads are all melee, right? Like they're not really that fast, are they?
Not really. Like they move like 7 inches, 6 inches.
6 inches. So the first turn they're not going to hit that well, but this is why. So Chaplain Grimaldus, he has a aura of core within 6 inches. When they advance 3 plus D3 inches. So they're guaranteed like moving at least halfway up the board.
So they're moving like, okay, so they're moving like 10 plus inches when they advance.
Yeah.
Okay.
10 to 12. And the having played it, the Redemptor Dreadnoughts can pick up like 2 buggies,
Okay.
which isn't a lot. But then I've played Repulse the Reapers before. The Reapers can also, I believe he picked up 2 buggies in the game we played, Ben, when he was in the Devastator Doctrine.
The Reapers?
Yeah, 1 Reaper picked up 2 of the.
It's not going to pick up that many on average because that one was Iron Hand, so it had some extra bonuses. But like,
rerolling hit rolls of 1 only, right?
Yeah,
which matters.
Yeah, you could like probably take a buggy out. Like their armor's not actually great, so like mass anti-infantry fire can just come.
Yeah. And then you're just getting into melee. One of the things about this list is, I mean, who knows what the new Speed Freaks Army of Renown does, but you have a character who gives off OBSEC, and then all of the Dreadnoughts are core and can have OBSEC for a CP. If you are going up against any Orc Buggies are one thing. If you are going up against anyone who has Psychers, one of those Ironclad Dreadnoughts also gets to move an additional 3 inches. So might actually be able to just make that turn 1 charge, depending on how your opponent plays.
Can you advance and charge?
So it would be a 9-inch a 9-inch movement with a rerollable +2 charge.
Right, but that's not actually far enough to clear. No Man's Land is usually 24 inches, so you wouldn't actually be able to like be within 12 of something usually.
Yeah, probably not if you're going first.
That's right. Well, if you get to go first, you get to shoot the airplanes and everything's happier.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if the Orc Buggy player, and it might be correct, thinks that they can just literally stand in the back and shoot you to death, the hope is that the army is actually tanky enough to survive that. I needed to play a few games to figure that out. The nice thing is, if you do deep strike the Crusader squads, there's nothing that army gives off the initial freebooters proc freely for.
Yeah, no, there's nothing there. Sorry, go ahead.
Grimaldus also gives a Feel No Pain to all of the Dreadnoughts, a 6-up.
Okay.
And which also, once again, changes the math more. And if they are shooting into the Reapers, you can spend a CP to give them -1 to hit. So, like, there's not a lot that they can just, like, guaranteed kill.
So if we are really trying to just, like, twist this list to, like, murder the Orc list, your 3 HQs, it's Grimaldus, Chaplain on Bike, and a Captain?
The
Master of the Forge. Could I convince you to turn your Chaplain on Bike into a Chaplain with a jump pack so he can go and speed up a plane in melee when they fly over a wall to get line of sight on you?
I think so, because I'm pretty sure that's cheaper then. And that would actually let the melee... I've talked with Ben about this before. We wanted some Hurricane Bolters on the Ironclads for the Drakari matchup. I'm pretty sure Chaplain with jump back is cheaper than a Chaplain on Bike.
Although he kind of needs the plus...
He is like 5 points cheaper.
He needs the bonus to charge litany though, so he can't take the murder litany. It's a little awkward, but I don't know. There's something there. You're putting Meltaguns right on the Ironclads.
Yeah, it's free.
So they can actually take pot shots at any airplanes that get too close to you too. All right, yeah. I'm feeling this list more and more the more we talk about it. This is pretty sweet. We're doing cool things. And you even solve the issue of like, well, there's no OBSEC on the Dreadnoughts. The Dreadnoughts can be OBSEC if they have to.
Yeah. Speaking about sending that Ironclad Dreadnought into combat turn 1, keep in mind you can spend a CP to move it 3 inches. If your opponent goes first, you can be like CP moves 3 inches after you're done shooting. Litany, he moves an additional 3 inches. So now all of a sudden your Ironclad Dreadnought has moved 12 inches before
declaring his first charge. Yeah. He can go. Yeah. So it's kind of neat how there's like I see there as like sort of 3 builds. I'd originally seen it as 2. You've talked me into a third one. The 3 builds I see is like the traditional, like we quote unquote traditional, like melee Marines list, bunch of dudes, storm shields, jump packs, kind of picking between those 3 litanies. And then that like 5 open vulnerable save litany kind of like picks up 2 other sorts of builds. Which is the, I'll have to see those new Crusaders, the like Primaris Crusader squads in action with like 22 wound Marines. Like, my gut instinct is that it is not good enough to just put like 60 dudes on the table and push them at your opponent. But like maybe it is, like maybe there's something there and I'm just like missing it. And then the vehicle list that you've proposed to, like this thing sounds sweet. It may not be like literal tier 1, but like it certainly can't be. I refuse to believe that this list is bad. Like it certainly has gameplay to it.
And there are some places you can make some changes. If orc buggies and like just killing things behind walls takes a hit, you can vastly improve the firepower of the list by switching out the Reaper for a bunch of Eradicators with just a bunch of Eradicators and move, shoot, move them. The problem is that like in the current meta, 2 of the major factions can literally just like kill them from behind the wall they're standing.
Being orcs and
Admech.
Oh right, because Admech players are also dumb. Yep. So where do you see this army on a power level? So like its baseline in Space Marines, right, which are kind of struggling in the meta, but they definitely they were the best Space Marine book, and yeah, losing to Outpush or the old version of Outpush is a big hit, but the version it has been replaced with isn't like wildly worse, and they also got some pretty new sweet stuff. So where do you see this book on a power level? Like is it up with like Sisters and Thousand Suns? Are we playing up with the big boys like Admech Orcs? Are we being sad down with Imperial Knights and others in like Imperial Fists?
I see it with Sisters and Thousand Suns.
Okay.
I think it's probably going to be the best way to play Space Marines, maybe barring like if you don't consider Grey Knight Space Marines, which I don't. And maybe barring that special Death Watch attachment. I need to play around with that attachment a lot. It's very complex in what you can do with it. But it could also be equally powerful. The power on that Death Watch Army Renowned is there. It's just
who knows how you're supposed to build it? My goodness. All right. Any other thoughts on this?
Don't like that the Emperor's Champions in HQ. I know it's been that way, but chapter champions haven't been there when they're in the elite slot, aka not really competing for anything, and putting in the HQ slot I know they've always been in the HQ slot. It's just kind of sad.
I feel like you need to run double chaplain, and then you're like highly incentivized to run either like a chapter master or in this particular case a Jack Marine. Like you just couldn't convince me to run a HQ who's not actually buffing stuff.
Yeah. On the Sword Brethren, they actually gave Space Marines the restriction that other codexes have gotten, where you can only build them as you could out of the box.
That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like you can bring a Thunderhammer, a guy with 2 lightning claws, a power axe, a power maul, a plasma pistol, until you get up to 10 guys, in which you can double all of those. It's just like this is not how you're supposed to build units in 40k.
Both for power level and for gameplay. That unit sounds like it's going to take 20 minutes to resolve. Yeah, okay. That's unfortunate.
Yeah. I do think that they'll be fun like in Crusade. Doesn't mean a lot.
Yeah, they're just not getting there for competitive, you think?
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
On the 20-man squad, by the way, like the 60 bodies, I could see it being like 2 Land Raider Crusaders, because Land Raider Crusaders have a strat of 1 CP. Your guys can get out after it moves.
Can you put the Primaris guys in there?
Sorry. 2 regular Crusader squads, 1 big Crusader squad of Primaris.
Oh, okay.
The big Primaris Crusader squad, you play the 5-up invuln attachment, because you're not going to be able to hide them easily. They're not going to be in cover a lot. And then
Well,
you
they
do
can't be in cover, right? So. Oh, you mean obscuring? Understood. Yeah.
No, I don't mean obscuring. I mean, a 20-man blob is just not is going to be shootable. Some number of them could be into cover, but not all of them anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
And you're probably very rarely going to get the dense bonus. So my point being, like, the downside of that,
Of that vow, yeah, just like it's not there, so just may as well take it.
Yeah. As a compensation, you can give them a 5-up invuln and a 5-up feel no pain. And you would want to take a Master of Sanctity who isn't Grimaldus, which is a little bit sad. Maybe you still take Grimaldus and you just accept you're spending 2 CP on him for 1 turn, because as a reminder, the Space Marines have 2 CP, do a litany out of sequence. You can be like, your opponent goes first. These guys have a 5-up feel no pain because you're going to shoot them up. And that might be tanky enough to survive between everything. The Crusaders get to move up, drop off a bunch of guys. I don't think this is great. I think that's like putting you solidly in like middle tier, but like it's not embarrassing anymore.
That's good. I'm glad that we're seeing some other sorts of builds being like at least a little bit viable. Well, I think this book's pretty exciting. It's like another way to play Space Marines. And I think GW did it. My concern when they were talking about this book was that, like, we already have Blood Angels, we have White Scars.
Yet another melee.
Like, we're just like another melee faction. Like, how do you make these guys feel unique? And I think they've done it. I think that these feel different than Blood Angels and White Scars, and they've done it. They built another power armor melee faction that's like unique. And it holds its own character, and it holds its own character pretty well.
I think so too. You know, like the 3 melee Marine factions, you know, they have distinct flavor, whereas, you know, the White Scars, you know, they got the zoomies and they hit hard. And then the Black Templar, you know, they got their vows, and, you know, they've got, you know, these unique weapon options, and, you know, their unique loadouts. And then the Blood Angels are a thing. So
Are they a thing?
I mean, nominally.
Fair.
So I was kind of hinting on this when we first started reviewing the supplement. Without a doubt, we are going to be getting redos of the original 6 supplements at some point. And probably a large number of those characters and probably unique units are going to be Primarisified from those various factions. With that, they were able to introduce enough power into this book to kind of like make it feel like Space Marines are fresh again. Is there any particular Space Marine faction that, like, you're like, oh man, it would be sweet if this unit became Primarisified, or I'm interested in adding XYZ to the army?
Drop pod.
Well, I'm ready for Primaris Sanguinary Guard to actually ruin the game. I don't want them to exist, but they will, and it's going to be terrible.
I want a drop pod.
Ooh, I like Chris's answer better.
Do you know that there's one of the kids' novels for Space Marines have intercessors coming out of a drop pod?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything.
That doesn't count. Like, yeah, it's canon, but like, not really.
Poo on your comment, Kevin. No, I hope it's a thing. That'd be cool. Kind of give Primaris another way of entering the battle.
Is this when we get like Space Marines 9.5 and the Hammerfall bunker becomes the drop pod? The thing that we
I was hyped for the Hammerfall bunker because I thought it was going to act like a drop pod.
I thought it was going to act like a bunker. Like, I thought it would be a transport with no movement speed that you could like crew and have firing points.
Like, I thought it was going to drop from the sky, like in Dawn of War, and then it would just like sit there as a turret. That would be cool as hell. I thought it was going to be like a literal bunker. Like, you could put dudes in it with firing points, like the name would imply. No, it's a stupid box. It doesn't do anything.
Turns out
it's just a literal paperweight.
Turns out that even Space Marines can't make their fortifications good.
Yep. All right. On that note, I think we've pretty much wrapped up Black Templars. Any non-Black Templar stuff either of you want to talk about before we hop off?
Yeah, how fast do you think I can paint 3 Docket Jets, a Waz Bomb, and like 9 buggies?
Exactly fast enough to be done at the exact moment they get nerfed.
Okay. What if I have an airbrush, though?
Do you want to play that list? Is that list interesting to you?
No.
Okay, well then
I don't even have a GT on the horizon that I'm planning on going to. It just seems like low-hanging fruit.
I just wouldn't want a list. I mean, the people who play the list, like, there's nothing against you. Like, I have 100% put degenerate lists together from very broken codexes. This one just doesn't speak to me, and even when I was playing them, I was not particularly happy that they were ruining the game. And I would like to be able to go back to playing reasonable armies and reasonable games.
No, it's like I said in our group chat, where I was just like, well, either I do this or I just sit there painting world eaters and just mutter my kingdom for a codex.
World eaters are pretty cool Horus Heresy rules.
You do, and I have
40K is reasonable.
I have Metal Karn painted up in Heresy colors.
Oh, there you go. All right.
Their Heresy scheme is white, right?
White and blue.
They're white and blue.
Makes the red very stark.
Alrighty. I think
their armor's not actually painted red, right? It's like
no, it's they paint it red after
they did after a while, but initially it was just blood.
All right. On that note, Chris, I think it's probably about time to take us off.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this week's show. Hope you enjoyed it. Catch us on YouTube with the VODs and Spotify or iTunes for past episodes of the podcast. If I eventually get around to uploading them, I think we're up to date now. Yeah, we're up to date.
Chris.
No, we're up to date.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I remember because Gil yelled at me for saying that the audio was wrong in the last episode because my mic was off. But anyway, yeah, thanks for listening, and don't forget to kill, maim, and burn. All right. Don't roll any ones. Bye.